Hi, everyone. Welcome to Azure User Group Sweden. Hi, Håkan.
Hello, Diana. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine here in this cold weather.
Did you get some snow already
Yes,
in
yeah, we have some
Oslo?
snow. Yes.
Okay, yes, we got lots of snow here in Sweden. I just recently got back from Amsterdam. There wasn't any snow, but here it's a big contrast. Yeah, but I hope that our the audience and the community members that are watching us today are having a great time in their couch and wherever you're watching it today. Yes, thank you so much. So today will be a great session. We have an interesting topic, Håkan, and it's about AI. And I know this is a specialty that you have as well in this technology area.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be especially interesting because now the topic is AI for developers. So how you can use services that are sort of already pre-made. So this is going to be very interesting to everyone, I think.
Yes, and make our applications that we build smarter as well
Mhm.
with Azure AI services, which is a trending technology today. But before we start, let me just to those that are new in our stream or community, I would like to introduce Håkan Silvernagel here with me. So Håkan is working as an AI specialist at Miles AS in Norway. He is also very active in the community as ambassador for Oslo AI. He is one of the leaders of a Norwegian.net user group and also leading the AI 42 schools. He has 20 years experience in software development and IT, and he is also an MCT and an international public speaker. So glad to have Håkan as my co-leader in this community as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonah. So I'm also very honored here to be able to present Jonah Anderson, who is the founder of our user group. She is a Microsoft Azure MVP and also Microsoft certified trainer. And she has also written a book about Azure. And she works also as a mentor, as a public speaker. And in her daily job, she works as a senior Azure consultant at Solidify.
Thank you, Håkan, for the great introduction. It's it's a good reminder of the great things you do for the community. So I feel humbled, very humbled when I hear that. Thank you. All right. So before we start and bring our guests in the stage, let me just show everyone our code of conduct. So for our community members, we follow a code of conduct in which we expect everyone to, including ourselves, to be nice and friendly, listen with purpose and be thoughtful, be respectful, and try to understand others in the community. Be curious and open to share your ideas and be inclusive and respectful in your comments and questions during our sessions, regardless if it's offline or online. And if you have questions about our code of conduct or any feedback for improvement, feel free to reach out to me and Hokan on LinkedIn or through our Meetup page. And to those that are learners today, maybe you want to share about this. Oh, I forgot. I see. I
Yes,
forgot the AI for developers there. Sorry.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we have we
Go
have
ahead.
prepared a special learning path here, AI for developers. You can reach that on this Bitly link, and you can also claim your learner badge here for being into this session. So you can just scan this QR code on this slide.
Yes, yeah. So, and then if you grab it, you will get a learner digital badger from Microsoft, and it's like a proof of your like learning session with us today. And feel free to tag us or Azure Heroes when you share it, or Microsoft as well. And then later on, to those that wants to have a one-on-one interaction with us and even with our speaker about AI development with Azure, feel free to join us also in an after session fika. So it's pretty casual and laid back. You can grab your favorite drink with you and hang out with us for 15-20 minutes after the session. So feel free to join us and we'll show this QR code again later on.
Yes. Yeah, so then I think it's time here to introduce our guest. So bring him into let us bring him into the stream here. So welcome, Samuel Gomez.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sam. How are you today? I like your Twitter handle, the soccer dove.
Thanks.
Do you play? You
Yeah,
said you're
I'm crazy about football. Soccer over here in the U.S.
yes.
I was actually born in Mexico, so it's one of those things that you just do as soon as you're able to walk. You pretty much playing the sport, and I still play it. I watch, and I even coach my oldest son team for a while. So pretty passionate about that.
Yes, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Håkan.
let us just have a more formal introduction here to Samuel. So Samuel Gomez works as a tech lead at Jenica, and he has worked in software development for 13 years, mostly using Microsoft technologies. And he loves the problem-solving aspect of the work. And in recent years, he has become very passionate about AI and machine learning technologies, and also how they can be applied to different aspects of our lives. And when he's not coding, he enjoys spending time with his family, soccer, playing video games, and watching movies.
Okay.
That's me.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. And you work for Geneca. I'm not really sure what you do. Can you share briefly what it is for
Yeah,
company?
so Jenica, we're a consulting company. So we specialize in custom software for different companies across different industries as well. So we were,
Okay.
relatively small company. We're mostly a Microsoft stack, but really as a consulting, we work with any technologies that our companies or our clients have. But like I said, we focus more on the custom software part of it.
Okay. Yes.
Good.
That's great
Do
intro.
you do you want to say a couple of words, Sam, here about what the learners or what our audience will be able to learn here from your session today?
Yeah. So I'm hoping that, or by the end of the session, I'm hoping that people leave the session with the knowledge of what APIs Azure has to offer that would allow you to integrate AI capabilities to their applications. Because not everyone has the time or the knowledge to build their own models from scratch. So I want to make sure that people are aware of or what's out there that might solve their problems a little bit quicker and a little bit easier.
Mm,
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
Yeah, interesting. I myself is curious about that, but let me just show you that some of our friends are already saying hi. Ashish, hi. Audrey is also here. Glad you could join us, Audrey. So yeah, great to have you with us.
Welcome, everyone.
Mm.
Yes. So should we rock the stage now? We let Sam rock the stage.
Yes,
Do you have
yes,
a
share
presentation?
your screen here, Sam.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that.
It's
There you go.
great. Let me add that. Wait.
Oh.
You were thinking alike there. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. All right. Go,
All
go ahead.
right.
Yes.
All right. So welcome, everyone. Good, I think, afternoon if you're over there in Sweden, or good morning if you're joining by any chance over my side of the world in the U.S. or anywhere in this area. My name is Sam Gomez, and this presentation is titled AI for Developers, Making Your Application Smarter with Azure AI Services. A little bit about me. We already went through some of this stuff, but I was born in Mexico. I am currently a tech lead at a consulting company called Jenica. As we said already, when I'm not doing something technology related, I love to spend time with my family, my wife and my two kids, watching movies, playing video games, and anything football related. You can connect with me in Twitter, or I get X now, at the soccer dev, my GitHub repo, where you can find some of the code you will see later. And I would love to connect on LinkedIn and answer any questions that you might have about this. Or I also present on infrastructure as code topics. So if you have any questions about that, I would be more than happy to connect and help you out. So the agenda for this presentation, we're going to look at the options that you have when you want to implement AI or do you want to add AI to your applications. We're going to talk about why you want to use Azure AI services, what are the APIs that are out there, and then we're going to look at these tools in action with a demo. So AI and machine learning is something that we've heard about a lot in recent years, from self-driving cars. We have chatbots doing customer service. We have AI also in healthcare, for example. We have smart assistants at home. If you have an Alexa or if you have a Google Home, then there's some AI in there behind those devices. And obviously, everything is it's all about chat gpt and large language models more recently. So it's something that it's definitely here to stay, and it's getting really into all the aspects of our lives. Now, when you want to add AI capabilities to your applications, you kind of have there's two main routes that you can follow. You can either build your own model, or you can use pre-built models like the ones we're going to talk about today. So if you go down the route, or you start going down that route of building your own model, there's a few steps that you have to get to before you have anything that is available for your application to connect to. So first of all, you have to identify your data, and you might find out that you're not collecting the data that you need to build your own models. You might not even get past this first step, depending on the data that you're collecting at your organization. And then, but if you do get past this stage, then you have to collect it. You have to prepare your data. There might be some calculations that you have to do. You have to manipulate the data so that it's in a good place to train your model. So you move on to that stage, you train your model, you test it, and then you finally at a point where you can deploy it. And then you have to worry about maintaining that model, retraining, make sure that it's still generating good predictions. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I was mentioning earlier that I am recovering from a cold, so I might have to take a couple of pauses here and there. So this entire process can take you months to even get, like I said, to a place where you are ready to implement your application. So depending on the project, depending on your requirements, you might not have that kind of time. So that's where the other option comes in. If your use case, if your requirements, your scenario falls within what I would say, quote unquote, common scenarios where you just want to analyze images, you want to do maybe some translation, you want to do some text to speech, that's where pre-built models and these APIs that Azure have come in. So why do you want to use Azure AI services? So there's APIs for multiple scenarios. We're going to get into that in a minute. It's very easy to integrate with available SDKs. So all these APIs are available as normal REST APIs. But if you're working with C Sharp, Go, Java, JavaScript, or Python, there are SDKs that will make it a lot easier for you to interact with these APIs. A lot of these services have a free tier for that you can use to maybe work on a proof of concept, or maybe even work on an actual application, if provided that you don't have a lot of usage for those APIs. And then finally, a lot of these APIs also have the ability to create custom models. So this is a middle ground in between building your own model from scratch and using what Azure AI has out of the box. So that's kind of a middle ground. For example, if the image analysis that it's out that you use out of the box or that is available out of the box doesn't really solve your problem, you can build a custom vision model that is more tailored to your needs. But like I said, that's more of a middle ground because you're still not building everything completely from scratch. So these APIs can be divided, or the majority of them can be divided into 5 different categories. So we have speech APIs, language APIs, vision APIs, decision, and translator. So let's look at the speech group and what is available there. So the speech APIs have speech to text and text to speech. So if you need, from an accessibility standpoint, for example, you need to give your users a chance to interact with your application through voice, then you can use this API to do that. Speech translation, as the name suggests, if you have audio that you need to translate, you can use this to do that. And then finally, speaker recognition. If you want to be able to identify the people that are speaking in a particular piece of audio, you have the ability to do that as well. You will obviously have to provide samples of the voice of the people that you want to identify, but that is something that you can do as well with these APIs. All right, moving on to the language group. So we have entity recognition. So if you want to be able to identify uh, names, places, um, or products or different entities in your text for some processing that you need to do behind the scenes, you would use the entity recognition functionality. Sentiment analysis, if you want to be able to determine if a piece of text has a positive sentiment, a negative sentiment, or neutral. For example, if you want to automate the way that you process your customers' comments or reviews from your products, you can use this API to do that pre-processing and send particular comments over to customer service department so they can do follow-ups, things like that. Question answering, if you want to build a Q&A database, for example, you would use this API or this service. Conversational language understanding is the API that you want to use, and it gives you the ability to understand what your users are trying to say. So, for example, this works in tandem with the bot service. So, if you want to build a bot, you would use this conversation language understanding in the back to kind of determine the action that you need to take based on what your user is saying to your bot. Summarization, if you have a big piece of text and you want to summarize it to just a few lines, this is an API that is available. It just recently became available. And then finally, text analytics specifically for health. All right. Vision API or the vision category is next. So computer vision, you have the ability to extract text from images, do image analysis, so be able to identify what's going on in a particular image, generate captions for your images. Custom vision, if you, like we said earlier, if what's out of the box does not work for your particular scenario, you have the ability to upload your own images, tag them or label them the way you want, and build your own model based on that. You can interact with it the same way that you would interact with the computer vision or the regular computer vision API. And then finally, the face API. If you want to be able to identify faces and pictures, or more advanced functionality, you can do that as well with this API. Now, this is an example of an API that is going to be more restricted than the others. Some of these you can just use out of the box without having to go through any extra steps. The face API, for obvious reasons, because it could potentially be misused, you actually have to go through an extra approval process in order to be able to use that functionality on an API. So just something to keep in mind if that is something that you think you will have to use. In the decision category, we have the anomaly detector, content safety. If you want to keep an eye on the content and block certain content from your website or your application, you can use the content safety API. And then personalizer, which allows you to create personalized experiences for a user based on the interaction that they have with your application. Finally, in the translator group, we have the text translation, we have document translation, and you can build or you can customize the translator as well. If, for example, one of the language that you're working with is not supported by the API by default, then you can create your own if that's something that you need. Now, there are other APIs that do not really fall into any of these groups, and all of these APIs have actually been, some of them have been renamed. Used to be called, all the other APIs that we just saw, they used to be called cognitive services. But all these ones that we're going to see, they used to be called applied AI services. They're all under the umbrella of Azure AI services. But like I said, these ones don't really fall into the other categories. Some of these are actually built on top of the ones that we just saw. So for example, the document intelligence API, it's built on top of the vision. So it uses OCR to extract text from documents, but it also uses some of the sentiment, not sentiment analysis, for entity recognition, for example, to determine extract fields, for example, from documents. So, like I said, these are built on top of some of the other ones that we just saw. And then some of these are for very specific use case, very specific business scenarios. Immersive reader, if you need to be able to give your users the ability to read your web page from an accessibility purposes, that's the API that you can use for that. Metrics advisor, video indexer, if you want to be able to extract frames from videos, index them, tag them, that's the service that you want to use. We have cognitive search, which allows you to do smarter searches over different data sources. So SQL, files that you might have in Azure Storage, Cosmos DB. You can connect all these data sources to cognitive search and run searches directly in there. And then finally, the bot service, which obviously if you want to add a bot into your application to do customer service or answer common questions that your users might have from your website or your product, you would use the bot service to build that. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about data privacy and security, just because when you're using some of these APIs, you might be, if you're using images, for example, you might be worried about what happens to those images, or if you're using text and there might be some confidential information, for example, in that text or those documents. So what happens with that data? What happens with that input? What happens to the output? So first of all, obviously, all these services are authenticated. So when you create your service, you have a key that only you can use, provided that you don't post it in your GitHub repo or anything like that, but you'll be able to use that. The data is encrypted at rest and in transit. So even if it's stored temporarily, the data is encrypted. It would only be accessible to Microsoft engineers in case that there's something catastrophic and they need to troubleshoot what happened. But other than that, nobody in theory should be able to access that. There's also limited access features. So like I said, the Face API is not something that you can just use out of the box. And some of the features from custom vision, for example, like celebrity recognition, is something that is also limited. So, not everyone can just grab some of these APIs and just start using them for, bad purposes. And then finally, data storage. The data is, there's two different ways that some of these APIs do it. So for APIs, some of the data is just not stored at all. So you send the input, you get back a response, and nothing is stored even temporarily. In some of these APIs, the data is stored temporarily. For example, the image analysis is a completely asynchronous operation. So um, the data might be stored temporarily, the results might be stored temporarily until you retrieve those. And I believe they're stored for like 24 hours in case that you don't retrieve them immediately, for example, but then they're deleted afterwards. And then also very important to highlight that any data that you use through these APIs is not going to be used by Microsoft to train some of the other products. So it's not going to be used to train ChatGPT or anything like that if that is something that you are concerned about. One last thing that I actually don't have in the slide, but that is also important in this conversation is some of these APIs are available or you can run them as containers in on premises. Now, if you want to do that, you do have to go through a more uh, to a more complicated, not complicated, but a longer process. So you have to fill out a form. You have to let Microsoft know why you need to run these models in a container on your on premises, for example, which you might have to do as a legal requirement or government requirement. So you do have to that option. You do have to go through those extra steps. Again, not all the APIs are available for that at the moment, but it is an option that you do have. Okay, so that is really all I have as far as quote unquote theory goes. I want to make a pause here. I feel like I might have gone through that a little quick, but I want to make a pause here in case that anyone has any questions about uh, anything that I just said before we actually move on to the demo. So I'll make a quick pause here. So, the question here says, any rules of thumb to follow during training? So, for example, when adding and tagging images for vision or adding utterances for intent recognition. Um, I think for utterances, you really want to add as many as you can, just so that the model is able to identify that particular intent more accurately. As far as tagging images for vision, it's really just going to depend of what you want to be able to identify on that particular image. But really, that it will depend on your scenario. But I think uh, that's uh, that's what I would say to that particular question. How I hope that answered your question. Anything else before we move on to the demo?
I don't think so. We only have one question so far. Please proceed. Oh, yes, he said thanks.
Okay.
Yes, so I was
Yeah.
satisfied. That's
Yeah,
great.
and like I said, if there's more questions, even afterwards, I would be happy to connect on LinkedIn, and we can go into a little bit more detail if it's very specific scenario that you're dealing, or if you're already using this and you have more questions, or as you do your training, you have more questions, I'll be more than happy to connect and help out any way I can. All right. So what are we going to cover in this demo? So we're going to look at creating a resource, how we can test this APIs without writing code. And then we're going to look at some examples of vision, the speech to text, and language understanding APIs, among some of them. And we're going to see, we're going to take a quick look at how you could do a custom model if time permits. So I want to try to keep it short so we can cover everything. Now, we all have done demos. We know that demo gods don't always cooperate. So I want to do this prayer real quick. Hopefully that will help us have a smooth demo. Let this code compile in not an hour, but a little while. Allow this application to run with speed and zest, as this will keep users glued to my test. If my code blows up in my face, do it with style and grace. And last but not least, when all is said and run, let thy requirements have been correctly done. All right. Let's move on to that demo. And let me rearrange this a little bit. All right. So first of all, real quick, for those of you, if you've created an AI resource in Azure, creating an Azure AI resource is no different than that. So you come over here, Azure AI service. And here, the first option that pops up. Now, some of these, as you can see over here, you can create a key that allows you to connect with different services, but there are some of them that do have to be created separately. As you can see here, the content safety is one of them. I believe the language is another one, and I think the translator also you need to create it as a separate resource. But if you create this resource, Azure AI services, you can do vision, you can do things speech, a bunch of other services with the same key. So here's the standard questions that you get, or the standard things that you need to add. So it's the details. So here I don't have the option of the free tier anymore because I already have a service that's using the free tier. So if you're in that situation, then you will only have that option. So I'm not gonna create it. I'm just gonna give it a name. So check this box. There's all these disclaimers about using these APIs responsibly. We know that AI is a very powerful tool, and unfortunately, as all tools, it can be used for good. It can be used for not so good purposes. So we just want to make sure that you've read all this, that you understand the risk, and you understand, what disclaimers that Microsoft has about those APIs. Then you can select how restricted you want that service to be. If you want to be able to if you want it to be accessible from everywhere, only some networks, or if you want to set up a private input for that, whether you want to give it a managed identity or not, and then a system identity or a user managed identity. So pre-standard for Azure resources, and then if you want to add any tags, again, very standard if you ever created an Azure resource. And you go to the summary, you review, make sure that all the information is correct, and then you can go ahead and get started with these APIs. So the second thing that I said we were going to cover here is how to test these APIs without code. So if you're just exploring these APIs, if you're just trying to figure out what they can do and whether they're going to be useful for their particular scenario, you don't really want to write proof of concept, right? You might want to save that time and you want to be able to test them outside of that. So this Azure AI Studio, it is in preview. It is very recent, but from here you have all these options and all these separate websites that you can go to, and this allow you to test all these services, like I said, without having to write a single line of code. So let's look at those in a little bit more detail. So first, the first one we're going to look at is Vision Studio. I already have a resource here. You can also create your resources from here. So where's that? There you go. So you can select the resource that you're working with, or you can even create a resource from here. So you have that option of creating it directly on the regular Azure portal, or you can do it from here. And then as you can see down here, you scroll down a little bit, and you have the different options that you can test here. Now, the spatial analysis, that is not something that you might be able to test here, because that's a more, it has more requirements to be able to test that. But the what you can do is you can test the optical character recognition. So you can do OCR, and you can click on try it out, and it already has some images by default. So if you select one, you will see here that it was able to identify the text. It did a really good job about identifying this handwritten text. But you can also upload images if you want to test with the images that you're expecting to use in your application. So you have that option if you want to do here. So you can browse for a file, or if you're on your phone, for example, you might be able to take a photo. I actually haven't tried that take a photo option, but it seems you want to be you can do that. Over here on the JSON tab, you can see what the response would look like if you were interacting with this API purely as a REST API. Um, and just in case that you want to see what that looks like. So all of these results, they have a confidence score. So if you want to do processing, you probably want to use this confidence score um, to determine what information is actually valid, or you might only want the results that have a particular confidence score. So 75%, if the model is 75% certain that this is the text, then I want to use it. Otherwise, I don't want to, or I want to send it to a human for review if the model is not very confident about the text in a particular image, for example. So let's go to image analysis. So let's try this one. So this is the image analysis. So it's going to extract attributes from the image. So it's saying that there's a person in the image, there's clothing in the image, there's some furniture. This is indoor table. So you can see everything that I was able to identify in here. And in here, you see that there's a little bit, the confidence goes down. So this is another thing that I was saying, that if you're trying to identify objects in an image, you might have to set up some logic on your application that you only want to use the tags or anything that comes over 90% confidence, for example, just to try to avoid returning results that are not very accurate. One thing that I also forgot, if you scroll down here, you can also go to the Tryout SDK. You have direct links to the quick starts. You can see sample codes on GitHub just to get you a little bit faster. And you have other resources like pricing if you're concerned about how much it would cost to use some of these APIs, there's direct links to go and look at the use the pricing calculator or just look at the pricing table or the pricing page for these services. All right, so let's see what other ones. So you see there's a lot of other um, scenarios in here. This is using the face API. So it was able to detect a face in the image. You can see that it detects some of the facial features as well. Again, this is why if you actually want to use it in an application, this will be a little bit more limited. It's not limited in this particular tool, but if you actually want to use it on an application, um, you're actually gonna have to request access for this particular functionality. So again, something to keep in mind for obvious reasons. It's a lot more restricted. Okay, so there's a lot more to cover. I'm gonna move on to the next one. But before I do that, any questions uh, about the Vision Studio or the Vision API, real quick? All right. I don't see anything in the chat.
I
Jonah Hacken, I don't know
I
if you see anything on the other channels.
there's nothing on the channels right now, but I do have a question behind the scenes, if I may ask. How do you? Is there any? What's your opinion or what's your point of view in terms of me as a developer and I want to develop or use this Vision tool on Azure AI in for example, if I want to build an app for sign language, like the alphabetical sign language, like for example, my sister is deaf and I always want to learn about sign language, and probably one of the ways to learn more about it is to build an app with it. But is that something that you can recommend with this tool as well?
I think you
Mm,
should be able to do that if you could probably combine um, you do a combination of the vision and maybe the speech to text, for example, so that somebody is making a sign and
okay.
you take that you tag that image or you tag that with a label in as they are doing the sign that there's some sort of translation, there's some sort of
Mm,
a speech that is happening. I do see
okay.
it. I do see that's something that you could do with some of these APIs.
The combination of one or two, maybe, on this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say at least you would do the vision and then the speech to text
Okay.
in order to accomplish something like that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you look actually, um, kind of related to that, if you click on this link, it will take you to a video where they show a um, they show an application that they build for people that are um, are like blind or they have difficulty with their vision, where they have the app and they have a camera and it tells you what's in the room. So as you point it to the different parts of the room, it tells you, oh, this is a TV, this is a refrigerator. So that's one example of some of the things that you can build, kind of related to what you were saying. So it pretty powerful stuff once you combine,
Mm.
one or more of these APIs.
Yes, thank you for that. I do see a potential on these services in terms of helping those that are those with problems with accessibility in our IT tools today, and me also learning the other way around and
Yeah,
making that translation between sign language that I know basic, but I wish I learned more. And one way to learn is to build something. So yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I just put the on I put the on the chat on the other side. I put
Mm,
the link to that video, so it shows some of the newer capabilities of these APIs. And like I said, that app that I just mentioned, where it just points. the camera, and it tells you what's in the picture or what's in the room.
All right. Great. Thank you.
All right. Um, so again, next one, we're gonna look at the Language Studio real quick. So this again, the tools all have kind of the same layout, and you can see the different tests that you can run here. So one of the APIs that I mentioned are it's a lot more recent is the summarized information. One thing also to note is that up here, when you're looking at these studios, you can see up here the APIs if they're available as Docker containers. It will have it up here. Uh, I think this one I didn't think it showed that it was available. So you'll see the difference here. So this one doesn't say that you can have it as a Docker container. So again, just one thing to keep in mind there. So let's say I only want 5. Uh, so this is just sample text that it has. You'll see I'm saying I'm going to give a little bit more leeway. So I'm going to say reduce that to 10. I'm going to take a little bit. So you see here, it's a pretty extensive test. I think this is a use case for Azure AI services being used by Lufthansa Airlines. And then this is the summary that it came up with. So it has uh, kind of bullet points of what that text is, and it also just has a summary of all those different paragraphs. Now, I haven't really looked into detail as to how accurate this API is. Like I said, it's something that just came up recently. But again, that is an option if that is something that you want to do. If you want to summarize, if you want to, if you're, there's another example of combining. So if you're transcribing meeting notes, you can, or you're transcribing meetings, you can turn the audio from a meeting, for example, into text, run it through the summary, and then provide that to people that might be interested to know what some of the bullet points of uh, that particular meeting if they weren't able to attend. So I want to look at the extract information real quick. So extract entities, and we're going to use this. So this is I guess, a sample from an email. And then if we click run, so it's able to identify that there's a person type. It's calling this a person. So it was able to identify that this is the name of a person, and actually with a accuracy of 100%. A location. So these are all the different entities that it was able to identify. Down here, you can see um, where is it located, and again, the confidence. You can look at the JSON results for that as well. If you want to look at that and get a little bit more into details as to what you would get back from the API, you'll see. So see here, if you want to be able to extract uh, that particular entity, for example, for the analysis or just capture, you have the ability to do that with this. Um, so again, very, very powerful stuff. And again, you're seeing what these APIs can do without writing a single line of code, which it's something that it can save you some amount of time, especially if you don't know if this is going to be useful or not. 1 second, everyone. If you can pause here. All right. Um, all right. So I'm not going to go through some of the other ones just because I want to be able to keep this moving. Well, actually, I do want to do the sentiment analysis. So, for example, again, one of the scenarios that I mentioned earlier in the presentation is if you want to be able to do some sort of processing of customer reviews, for example, or comments on your website, you can use the sentiment analysis, and you can say here. So we saw this text as a review of a product, and if you run it here, it's saying that it's 73% positive, so most of it is positive, but there are some negative comments here. And here's really where, again, it shines is that it doesn't just tell you overall, it also goes sentence by sentence, and it tells you each sentence, the sentiments of each sentence, so that you can go a little deeper and do a little bit of that processing. So here it's saying that this particular one is negative. So um, this part of the review is completely negative because it says I found the zipper a little bit difficult to get up and down due to the side brushing. So you might be able to break down these reviews, and if somebody is saying great things about the quality of the product, then you can send that to the manufacturing department. Or and if somebody's complaining that they call customer service and they didn't get everything resolved, you can send that to customer service department and have them maybe reach out to the customer or handle that part a little separately. So again, very, very powerful things that you can do with these APIs. Okay. I so it looks like we're getting close to time. So I want to make a pause here. Again, any questions about the language API? And we're going to see an application in a little bit, so you can see a little bit of code. But before, any questions about the language studio or the language API as a whole?
As Sam, there doesn't seem to be any questions here, but I have a question here. So,
Sure.
do you know, is it the same models that they're using sort of behind the scene as in Azure OpenAI services that they use here in these
No,
examples?
they are different, but they are starting to include some large language models with some of these APIs. So, for example, in Vision, one that I didn't show, but this where is it? Um, there is a new functionality. It's search from images or something like that. Search photos with image retrieval. So this is one that they just released, which has a large language model behind the scene for you to be able to search in within your pictures that you upload. So they are completely separate at the time at the moment, but I can see these APIs merging with OpenAI and maybe ChatGPT eventually. I don't know, but I definitely see that going that way of using that combination to make both of them more powerful. But they're separate at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right. So the Document Intelligence Studio is the next one that I want to show real quick. So this one allows you to extract information from documents automatically. So you can see here, there's some pre-built models that you can use. So invoices, receipts, identity documents, health insurance cards, some U.S. tax specific documents, contracts, or business cards. So if you want to capture information from that, let's do a sample real quick. Let's do, let's see here, there you go. So this is a picture of a photo of my business card. If I click run analysis, so these pre-built models are pre-trained on a bunch of different business cards. And you can see here that it was able to, let me zoom in real quick. It was able to identify my first and last name. It was able to identify that there's an email, there's a website in there, and then there's a work phone as part of that business card as well. So again, I didn't have to do any training for this. This is pre-built. If you are looking to, if you are looking for a pre-built model, if you're dealing with documents that have that sort of template, you can extract the information really easy. Receipts, for example. Let me do upload one real quick. So run analysis. And while that is running, one thing that you can see here over on the code tab, there is boilerplate code that you can use um, to call this API. And you could literally take this, copy and paste it on an application, and you will be able to do that analysis or analyze your own images in an application. So very easy to use, and Microsoft is making it easy as it can to for you to be able to use these APIs. So looking up here again, this is pre-built on a ton of different receipts. So it was able to identify the address for this particular store. It's even breaking it down to the different parts of the address. So the merchant name, phone number, what's the subtotal, tax details, and up here you'll see that there's a separate section for the items. So it's able to identify all these different items, all those different prices. It wasn't able to identify some of these custom, like for instance, this discount six pack. It wasn't able to identify that because it's something very custom, very particular for this receipt for this store. But again, this gets you probably 90% there if all you're doing, maybe you're capturing expenses and you're trying to automate that process. You can just use some of these APIs, capture that data, and maybe just build something custom for the data that you are not able to capture right away. So uh, again, really powerful stuff. A lot of great things that you can do with these APIs. These ones are more generic. So if your document doesn't follow any of these um, formats, you can use this APIs to just extract the data still in a more automated fashion. We are actually working on a couple different projects where our client where we're using these APIs to extract information from documents for some of our clients. So it's an API that is very useful in that particular scenario. Um, any questions before I move on to the last one, which will be the Speech Studio? All right. So we have a couple more to go, but I actually want to just do the Speech Studio real quick before I show a small application and show a little bit of code. So speech to text, I want to do just a translation real quick. So let me do this. Yep. Good afternoon to everyone in Sweden. Now, I don't speak Swedish, so you will let me know if this is how accurate this translation is. But still, very powerful stuff that you can do to translate speech, or you can translate text as well to a ton of different languages. So um, let me zoom out a little bit, and you can see here you choose a target language, and there is already a ton of different languages that this API supports. Um, you can and you can customize if you really want to do that, but really, I think it covers um, most of the languages that you would use. So really easy to use. We will see that in an application. So let's switch over to um, Actually, let me show the application first. So this is something that I started to build just to play with this APIs. So staying with the speech, uh, I have a logic behind the scenes to use the speech API to capture information or capture prompts from the user, and I'm using the language understanding to transform that into intents and using that to navigate through my application. So right now we are in the home page. I'm gonna say analyze image, and thankfully my prayer worked. So our demo is going well so far, and it switched over to image analysis. So what that looks like is if I go to I believe pane layout. So you will see here this is the method that is being called here when I click on that microphone button, and it says listening, and then it you just call this recognize from mic method from the speech service, and that is the input, and then I'm passing that to my language understanding, and then depending on the intent that it returns, I navigate to one or the other. So what the speech service looks like, you obviously are going to need your key. Here I'm using the same key for all these services. And then for speech, you also have to provide the region. And then you build your configuration. One thing that also to call out is that the authentication for these services is not the same all across. So that's something that's a little annoying that they don't follow the same pattern, but it's not a big deal. So depending on which service you want to use, the authentication is going to be a little different. But the thing that's going to be present is obviously your key is the thing that is going to be common across them. And then recognize for mic. So I'm just saying that I'm setting the configuration. So I'm saying from the default microphone, I'm building a speech recognizer with the authentication configuration and then the audio configuration. And then I'm just calling this recognize one async. And then I'm returning the result that was captured as text. So 4 or 5, well, if you count the configuration or you count the authentication, probably like 10 lines of code, and I already have something that takes speech, transform it into text, and I can use that to navigate on my application. So that is something that will take you probably 2 minutes to set up, and you have complex functionality like that in your application. And obviously, you can make it as complex as you can or as you need for your particular example. So let's do image analysis. So let me go up. And I'm going to use this one. So here I'm returning categories. I'm returning tags and caption. So you see here, it's saying that it's a person, it's a man, a human face. There's clothing. So again, what I showed you on that Vision Studio is what we have here again. It's detecting different people and it's giving you the coordinates on the image. So if you need to extract it or if you need to do highlighting on that particular image, you can do something like that. And then the caption that it has is a person holding a trophy. It only has a score of 65%, even though the caption is pretty accurate. It's really what that image is, what's happening in that image. So um, now what that looks in code is I'm using this analyze image, using a stream. You can set up whatever features you want to be able to identify in your um, in your image. So here I have almost everything that you can identify. But if you only want to identify objects, or if you only want to do the categories, you can narrow that down based on your particular scenario. It's also able to identify landmarks, and here is where you could also use the celebrities if that's something that you wanted to identify. A while ago, that is something that you could use out of the box. But that's something that, like I said, is more restricted now because it's something that could definitely be misused. So it definitely become more restricted, and it's a good thing to keep in mind when you use these APIs. As with any third-party API, um, it is something that you have to keep an eye on the different versions to make sure that there's no uh, breaking changes with the new versions that come out as you integrate them into your applications. Um, so I'm authenticating again, what that looks like. Um, like I said, it's a little different to the other one, to the speech service. Like I said, that's the other thing that um, is a little bit of annoyance that they don't all follow the same process. But and then you just call it analyze image in a stream async, and you get the results back from that. And then you can do whatever processing you want to do. So here, I'm just getting the results, and I'm building objects that have all the results for the tags, for the objects, um, the categories, et cetera, so that I can do whatever processing I want to do. Here, I'm just showing them on the screen, so I don't have to do anything complicated. But depending on your scenario, that might be something that you might want to build on top of that. Last one that I want to show real quick. I started playing with this again to see if I could process um, cards that my wife has for recipes in a some sort of automated fashion. So I have I am using a combination of the Vision API and the language API to do entity recognition to try to separate the ingredients and the preparation uh, for the recipes. So this is a very rudimentary logic that I have here. So the only thing that I did is I extracted the text from the image, and then I send it to the entity recognition. If there's a number next to a product, then I am assuming that that is an ingredient. So it does a decent job of extracting that information. So you'll see here, it was able to extract all these ingredients automatically. Um, but for example, dash of salt, that is an ingredient as well. But since it doesn't really have a quantity, doesn't have a number, it just says dash. It wasn't able to identify that as an ingredient. So um, that's where you come in as a developer. That these APIs, as great as they are, you might still have to do a little bit of work around them to get them to be more accurate. You can maybe here I have to upgrade that logic, or maybe even I might have to build my own model based on the format of these cards and see if that gives me a more accurate results. So um, I think I went a little over time. So I'm gonna pause here. Any questions? I don't think I have anything on the slides other than I have one more. Oops. So let me go back over here. Slideshow from current slide. So that is a link to the. Oops. Yeah. There you go. So that is a QR code. If you scan that, you'll have a link to these slides, where you will see links to the documentation for Azure AI services. You will have a link to Azure AI Studio, which was a page. From there, you can go to the Vision Studio, Language Studio, and all that. And I think that is all I have for right now. Any questions about anything that you saw today in the demos or the presentation, or anything that you didn't see that I might not have a chance to cover? And Jonah, how are we in time? If we do have I think we are already over, but if we have a few minutes, there's one more that I could show real quick if we have time.
I think we're out of time already, but what
Yeah.
do you think, Håkan?
Yeah, so maybe what is the last demo about?
I can leave that for the forum if that's something
Okay,
Yeah.
that works best.
yeah,
Yes,
that
we can
that
do
would be
that.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I really thank you for the great session. It was, I love the demos, and there's a lot of practical stuff you can do with the Azure AI services, including the recipe. So, is the recipe code somewhere on your repo?
yeah, that's in my
I would like
repo.
to build
Yeah,
on that.
yep. I have to upload a few changes that I did, but it will be on my GitHub later today, the latest version.
All right. Okay, great. Okay. Will you be joining us on our session later?
Sure.
Yes, yes, that's great. So, to those that who wants to join us for more discussions and questions, feel free to join us via Zoom using the Bitly link that you're seeing on the screen right now. Asher use ASUG Sweden Fika, and then dash, and then today's date. I think it's 1202 is the code. Yeah. Anything else, Hokan?
No, I think thank you so much for a great session here, Sam. So I think that was very useful for all of our audience.
Thanks for
Yes,
having
it
me.
is. Yeah, thank you for that great session. And everyone's thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to see you on our virtual Fika Zoom meeting. And I hope that you have a great weekend. See you again in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.